In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Afia Mahmood, and this is the course of Semantics and Pragmatics for the students of BS English Semester 6. I hope all of you will be fine and in good health. Our topic for today is lexical relations. This is our third lecture on lexical relations, so part 3 of the lecture. In our previous lectures, we have covered synonymy, hyponymy, antonymy, homonymy, polysemy. In our today's lecture, we will look at metonymy, prototypes, and collocations. First concept that we have to deal with is metonymy. Now, dear students, in the previous lectures, we were dealing with literal meaning. We were dealing with the literal language. Now, metonymy is a kind of relationship or is a kind of non-literal language. This relation deals with non-literal meaning because if we say that it also deals with literal meaning, or if we also look at it in the literal sense, we will feel or we will find some semantic oddness. We will discuss this with the help of the given examples and the definition. Let's look at the definition of metonymy. It says that it is a kind of non-literal language in which one entity is used to refer to another entity that is associated with it in some way. So here one entity or name of one thing can be used to refer to another thing. Or in other words, we can say that these concepts, metonymic concepts, allow us to conceptualize one thing by means of its relation to something else. So I can use one word for another word. So both of these words will actually have some relationship between them. Look at this example which is given over here. The sandwich in the next booth is waiting for his bill. Now, dear students, how can sandwich wait in the queue or in the next booth for his bill? Now, sandwich has been given a human characteristic here. So it means we are dealing not with the literal language, we are now dealing with the non-literal language, where some other meanings have been given to it, some other contextual meaning. Now, how these are contextual meaning, we will see here. Now, as I said, clearly we cannot interpret it literally because literal interpretation would lead to an anomaly. Anomaly in semantics is called actually semantic anomaly. For example, if I say Christopher is killing phonemes, how can somebody kill phonemes? So this seems literally awkward or odd. So it actually seems semantically odd, but non-literally it may be right. So we cannot take the literal meaning of the metonymy. We have to interpret it non-literally. So we have to understand it in a particular context. For example, the previous sentence where we said that the sandwich is waiting for his bill, it may be understood in the terms of restaurant or in the terms of in its relation to person or customers. Because obviously when we think of sandwich, the restaurant will come to our mind, or because the word bill has also been used in the same sentence, sandwich and bill and booth. So these three words tell us that this has actually been used in the context of restaurant, and then obviously the person is going to pay the bill. This is why we will say okay, it has been used in relation to person, and because generally customers pay the bills, so we can say that metonymy is a non-literal meaning which will be understood, which can be interpreted in the terms of its particular contexts. Now, there are different kinds of metonymy. Different kinds of metonymy either represents the part for the whole relation. So, one word would be used for the other, the word of the part would be used for the whole, or in some cases, the face will be used for the person, or in some cases producer will be used for the product, in some object will be used for the user, in a few cases controller will be used for the controlled, institution for people responsible. So now we will look at its example as well. We will look at all these different kinds of metonymy and their examples. So you will have to do it with me, because if you try to predict it, or if you try to guess these types yourself in the next activity which is going to come, your concept will be even more clear, plus it is very easy and interesting as well. So see, in the activity which is going to come, you have to match each sentence with the kind of metonymy that it represents. Remember, one word would have been used for the other. So for example, the part of something would have been used for the whole. So this is what you have to identify in these. So 8 examples are here, and you can see 8 are the types. So one for each, you have to match each of these. So for this you can take some 2 minutes and do it. So the time is up. I hope you would have tried it. Now let's discuss the answers. Let's look at this first example. The first example sentence is, Watergate was an important scandal in American politics. Now here, Watergate, the name of place has been used for the event. So this matches this last type. First sentence matches this type 8 over here. The second sentence is, the rancher needs some more hands during roundup time. Now you can see the word hands has been used over here. Hands, he definitely does not need hands, he rather needs more people. So we can say that it is part for whole relation. It is this one, that part for the whole has been used. Hand is our one body part, and the people has not been used, rather hands has been used. Now look at this third one. The buses are on strike today. Now the buses, how can the buses be on strike? So see here which can be useful for it. So object used for user. Now see here, the buses, users use passengers use buses. So instead of passengers or instead of the drivers, it has been written that the buses. So object used for user. So you see that in metonymy we use one word for the other, and both the words will have between them some kind of relation. Now look at this next sentence, sentence 4. Hollywood keeps putting out mediocre movies. So in this particular sentence you can see name the Hollywood, place for the institution has been used. Name of the place for the institution has been used. Okay. Now the fifth one is the art collector bought an expensive Picasso. Now you see Picasso, now here it means that he bought some painting, whereas and he bought some painting made by Picasso. So it has been written not Picasso's painting, rather only Picasso. So we can say it's producer for product. Then Hitler conquered Poland in just a few days. Now see here, it is controller for control. So Poland has been used instead of people of the Poland. Then army needs many new soldiers. Now it is institute for people responsible. Many new, the army needs. So who needs here? Now the people who are responsible, actually the employers or the management people need soldiers. So the word army has been used for the people who are responsible. So similarly we can also say that okay, assembly, National Assembly is responsible for this bill or something like this. So or for example if we say universities are responsible for this, so we are actually using institution for people responsible. Look at this last sentence, she is just another pretty face. So now the face for the person, she is just another pretty face. So it is face for the person. We just wanted to say she is just another pretty person, so face has been used for that. Okay, now we will move on. Now there is another type of concept. This is called prototype. It is prototype, as the name suggests, is of a predicate, is an object which is held to be very typical of the kind of object which can be referred to by an expression containing the predicate. So we can say that the prototype is the most typical example of a word. So dear students, if I say the word chair, just try to think that, or just try to draw a chair on your notebooks. What kind of chair does come to your mind? Is it some office chair? Is it some king-sized chair? Or is it a common chair? If you have to teach a kid that this is the chair, how will you teach the kid? You will obviously teach the kid that this is the concept of chair with the most prototypical example of it. So prototypes are actually quite helpful in teaching language to the foreigners and teaching language to the kids as well. We will look at an example. Now for example, we take another, if I say to think of a man. So what kind of man will you think? Will you think of a man who is very old, about 50 years old? Or will you think of a man who is only 16 years old? Or will you think of a man who is having some kind of disability, or will you think of a man who is extremely handsome? So what kind of a man will you think if you have to give a prototypical example of man? So obviously you are going to think of a man who is who has an average age, an average height, and an average looking appearance. You won't give an example of a man who has some extraordinary features or who has some abnormal features. So you will give quite an average type example. So prototype is the most typical or the most average type example of some concept or some word. So a dwarf, as I already said, or a hugely muscular bodybuilder could not be a prototype of the predicate man. So obviously you are not going to say that a hugely muscular bodybuilder or somebody very short heighted is the typical example of man. So now you won't say, you may probably say that this first picture is a typical example of man and not these two. Now, which of these is a prototype of bird? So obviously you won't say that ostrich, you will definitely say that it's this sparrow type bird. Because you have to give the most prototypical example. All these three kinds are indeed, they are birds. But when you have to teach a kid or somebody else the concept of some word, you will have to give the most prototypical example. Now look at this picture, these pictures of the houses. Which of these is a prototype of house? Obviously you will say the first one, because the second one cannot be the typical house of a typical man in the world. Now there are two more points for this theory of prototype. The first is that it is a theory of cognitive science, which says that some members of a conceptual category are more central than others. Now there are conceptual categories, like we took the example of bird. So that is a conceptual category. Some members in this particular category are more central than others. And this theory also says that any given concept in a language has a real world example that best represents this concept. So prototype is the best represented example from the real world. There is one more important thing that we should consider about this prototype, and that is new members in a semantic field. You guys should remember the concept of semantic fields from the previous lectures. So in semantic fields we said that there can be semantic fields of colors, which will include all the types of colors. There can be semantic fields of gender or sex, like male and female. There can be semantic fields of truth system, like true and false, we had discussed in the types of antonyms. And then there can be semantic fields of matter, or different types of semantic fields can be there. So new members, so for example birds, this will also be a semantic field. All types of birds will be part of this particular semantic field. Now the point is that new members in the semantic field are added on the basis of prototype. So when you are adding any new member in the category of bird, you will see whether it does have the properties of the prototype or not. If it does not, if its properties or if the properties of a word do not match with the properties of its prototype or the prototype of a category, then a word cannot be entered or cannot be part of a new semantic field. Okay, so we can say that the semantic properties of ostrich and the semantic properties of penguin in this particular picture, these semantic properties match with the semantic property of bird like robin. So now we will move on. Now dear students, this is another new concept. This concept is related to collocation. But before we move on, we have to look at another concept. That concept is related to syntagmatic relations and paradigmatic relations. Syntagmatic relations are, you can say there are these two arrows which are drawn over here. So this vertical arrow represents that there are this vertical arrow represents the paradigmatical relation between or paradigmatic relation between words. This horizontal arrow shows the syntagmatic relation between the words. Now let's take the example. Let's explain it with the example. The ridiculous girl fell into the pond. Now you see, you can see all these arrows are drawn over here. Now all these words, now the ridiculous is an adjective, and you see we can replace this word ridiculous adjective with any other adjectives. You see, we can replace these with silly, foolish, funny, crazy, intelligent, clever, anything. We can replace this with any other adjective. So because only an adjective can come between this noun and this article. So this relation, the relationship between ridiculous and silly, ridiculous and clever, ridiculous and intelligent or crazy, this relationship is paradigmatic relation. Now look at this. Girl, you can replace it with the person, woman, lady, kid, child, man, old, man or giant or anything. You can replace it with any noun. The words which will have paradigmatic relation with each other, they belong to the same category. Remember in synonymy, we had talked about that synonymy is the relationship between same parts of speech. So because it was also a paradigmatic relation. So paradigmatic relations are between the same parts of speech. You can replace one for the other. Now you see fell. Now fell has a paradigmatic relationship with jumped or tripped or plunged or walked or ran or any other type of verb. So it will have paradigmatic relation with all other verbs, we can simply say. Now look at this pond. Pond, it can be replaced with any of these words or any other nouns. So the words belonging to the same category will be replaced. These are paradigmatic relations. Now let's see what are these syntagmatic relations. So the relationship that is between the and ridiculous, ridiculous and girl, the relationship between girl and fell and into and the and pound. This relationship is syntagmatic relation. So for example, if I say green grass, so this relationship, the relation between green and grass is a relationship of syntagmatic nature. We will say it is there is syntagmatic attraction between green and grass. So we can say that there is syntagmatic attraction between ridiculous and girl, fell and into, the and pond, and so on, and between all other words. So I hope that it would be clear to you guys now that what is the paradigmatic and syntagmatic relation. Now just remember that all the relations that we have discussed so far, the relationship of synonymy, antonymy, metonymy, hyponymy, all these were actually paradigmatic relation. Now we are going to discuss collocation, which is called a syntagmatic attraction between words. Means now we are going to see relation at this level, at this horizontal level. Now I will move on. So here is the definition of collocation. I have taken this from the book of George Yule. You guys can also consult it. I have given the reference in the end. So a collocation is a pair or group of words that are often used together. Now, these are some words. There are generally some words that are often used together. These combinations sound natural to native speakers. For example, if you ask 1,000 people, which means that if you ask a lot of people that what comes to your mind when I say the word hammer, more than 1,000 people will say that nail comes to their mind. Or if you ask people, when I say the word table, just tell me which other words come to your mind. They might say chair, or some might say bed. So whichever word they are going to say, that is actually its collocate. So the words which frequently co-occur together are collocations of each other. So we normally use the words bread and butter together, or we sometimes use the word bread and jam together as well. So bread and butter, bread and jam, these are collocations of each other. They have the relationship of collocation. Now salt and pepper, these are also used together. Similarly, cup and saucer, these are also used together. So you can think of words which frequently co-occur together, and all of these are actually examples of collocations. Now we will move on to the next slide. Now, this collocation concept is based on the notion that each word in a language prefers certain lexical contexts for others. So we say in the language that there are lexical contexts. There are contexts of words as well. That one word generally prefers to occur with some other word. So that becomes its you can say most frequent neighbor, because it most frequently occurs with it. So in language, so for example, we may have such words which frequently appear together. I already gave the example of grass and green. So green, grass, these two words appear together. If you hear any other word with this, it might sound somewhat odd to you. So look at the other example as well, which is now letter. The lexeme letter is often used together with the lexemes write and read. We either say read a letter, or we either say write a letter. So we say that the words which frequently co-occur together, or certain words which are preferred in certain lexical contexts, are collocates of each other. Now, how do we determine that how many words we can count that these are the collocations of each other? How many words can be counted? So what counts as to count the words, we have this concept of collocation window, which is generally used by the researchers in the literature of semantics. So collocation window is like an area, which determines how many words can be included in the collocation of a particular main or central word. So we say the collocation or co-occurrence depends on how one has defined the collocation window. So we need to define that how large is this collocation window. then we will be able to decide about the co-occurrence. So how far apart the node and the collocate can be in order to be considered as co-occurring. So dear students, if I have the word green grass, two words, grass will be node in it and green will be its collocate. So the central word with which the other words are occurring will be called the node or the main word, which is actually responsible for the other collocates. The collocation window actually is specified as a number of words from the node. So we will see how far this window goes from left to the left side and to the right side. So sometimes it is said, in some of the research papers it is said that we can count 5 of the words to the left side and 5 words to the right side, and they will be included in the collocation window. Now there is this author Stubbs who said that there are most of the studies which say that collocation window can be L2, which means 2 words from the left and 2 words from the right. Some studies say 3 words from the left and 3 words from the right. So we can say on average that collocation window can be L3 and R3. So 3 words, 2 or 3 words to each side of the node respectively, from on the left and on the right respectively. Now, collocation analysis has been extensively used in corpus linguistics today. It has its fundamental place in the research on contextual semantics, which means that the description of meaning of lexical items is based on their contextual distribution in naturally occurring language. Contextual meaning has sometimes also been referred to as collocational meaning. You would have studied this contextual meaning type in 7 types of meaning. So contextual meaning means that the lexical context of the words will define their meaning. Let's look at an example of collocational or contextual meaning in this slide. So normally all of us say like I need a strong tea, or we say that's a powerful car. So you see that powerful and strong, they are near synonyms. This concept of collocation, or you can say this concept of lexical context, can actually differentiate between powerful and strong. Where powerful can be used, strong cannot be used. You see these question marks, dear students, look at these question marks. So you won't normally say a strong car, or we normally won't say a powerful tea. These expressions are semantically correct, or their meaning seems fine, but they are actually contextually wrong. They are contextually unacceptable. If not wrong, they are at least unacceptable because they do not frequently collocate with each other. This is why we say that it sounds odd. When you feel like something is sounding you odd in the language, it actually means that that sounding odd is because it has not occurred before with that particular word. If something is sounding odd, or maybe sometimes it can sound you unique as well. So near synonymous words can be distinguished with the help of these collocations as well. Now, there are 2 main uses of collocation. One use is in the field of psycholinguistics, the other use is in the field of corpus linguistics. We will discuss each of these. Now, in psycholinguistics, how is it useful? Now, it has been experimented that how most of us learn language, and it has been found out that most of us learn language with the help of collocation. We organize data in our mind, in our mental lexicon through different methods. We actually categorize data in our mind with the help of different other semantic relations as well. Like we store words in our mind in relation to synonymy, antonymy, and hyponymy as well, or hypernymy as well. But at the same time, our most of the language data is also stored in relation to collocation as well. So it may have happened with you that sometimes you wanted to say that I want butter, or you had instead said that I want bread. So instead of saying one word, you said the other word which was mostly collocated with it, which mostly occurred with it. So psycholinguists actually come through these slips of tongue where you mistakenly say one word for the other, that we are actually organizing our data in the mind through collocations. So collocations are really helpful in the teaching and in the learning of language, and they also help us to study how our mind processes language. Then collocation is also, it's a relation or its study in psycholinguistics is actually a very interesting and a vast field. Okay, next one is that it has also received a lot more attention in corpus linguistics. In the previous slide as well, dear students, I had slightly mentioned the name of corpus linguistics. I had once mentioned it. So let's now take few more examples of corpus linguistics. Corpus, what is corpus? Corpus is a large collection of words. It may be spoken or it may be written. So for example, if you have some 10,000 words collected with you, the words, so for example, if you have 10,000 words of newspaper genre, we can say that you have a corpus of 10,000 words which is taken from the newspaper genre. If you have 10,000 words of related to fiction, those words will be 10,000. So that will be a corpus of fiction. There can be a 10,000 word corpus from poetry or from sports as well. So the corpus can be written or spoken as well. You can have words in the spoken form as well. We can now take the example that how it is helpful in corpus linguistics. So corpus linguistics actually helps us to build many applications as well. It helps us to learn language as well. It also helps us to build many computational applications where we make use of corpus. Now for example, when you are typing something in Google, it actually gives you options. It predicts words for you. How is it predicting the words for you? So it has actually collected the data of the most frequently co-occurring words. It has collected the data of those words which frequently co-occur together. So it is giving you the data based on the collocations of the word. So, and similarly, when you mistakenly commit a typo error while typing in the word file, you will see that it will green underline the word. Green underline is for generally grammatical mistakes. So we can say that it is for the syntagmatic relation, that the word was not actually suitable with the preceding or the following word. So that gives you a green underline. How does it know that this word is not suitable? It comes to know through the collocation study that this particular word should not be used in such a context. Okay, now dear students, before moving on the next slide we have few types of collocation. Before moving on, one more usage that we are going to discuss these types of collocations. And these types of collocations are actually going to help us or going to help foreign language learner to learn language better. Collocations are actually very useful, extremely useful to teach language to the child, to teach vocabulary, to increase the vocabulary of the language learners. Now the first type of this collocation is that where adjectives and nouns co-occur together. So observe these examples. The examples are given here and you know these examples very well. For example, Emma always wears red or yellow or some other bright color. You can see adjectives and noun normally co-occur together. Similarly, brief chat, major problem, key issue. These are the most commonly occurring words. They commonly occur together. Now look at this next activity. So here you have to complete each sentence with a collocation from A. This was A. The previous slide, this was A. Now let's look at sentence 1. Come to my office 10 minutes before the meeting so we can have a... What would you write here? What would be your choice? So try to write all these, try to complete all these 4 blanks with the help of the previous slide. You have 20 seconds to do this. Now we have this next type where nouns and verbs frequently appear together. Now look at these examples. The economy boomed in 1990s. Now you see economy and boomed have been used together. Company has grown. Now economy and boom, these words can collocate with each other. Similarly, company with company grown, the word of grow can be used with a company, and expanded can also be used with companies, plus merged can also be used. So you can see all these words merged, launched, expanded, grown, these can be used in the this launched can be used with the product. So you can see noun either can come before the verb or it can come after as well. It is not a restriction that it should only come before it. So look at all these examples. The price increase poses a problem for us. So poses a problem or poses a challenge. These words generally co-occur together. Now here's another activity for you. You have to replace the underlined words with the collocating verb from B. The B was on the previous slide. You have to try to replace these words with the, so you can take help from this, you can come back to it, and then you have to do this particular activity where you have to replace these underlining words with verb. So you have to take a verb from the previous slide. So for example, in the first sentence, we are going to introduce an exciting new product. Instead of to introduce, you could say, we are launching an exciting new product. And for this, the economy was extremely high. You could use the economy boomed high 30 years ago. So you have to use the words from the previous slide because these are the words that frequently occur together. These activities, dear students, are particularly taken from a book which is which is on collocation and used to teach vocabulary to the foreign language learners. So it tells us the vocabulary or the words which frequently co-occur together. Now we will move on to the next slide. Now we can also have this combination noun plus noun where so for example, look at it. He felt a surge of anger, so a sudden angry feeling, or a sense of pride. You see, sense, surge, these are also nouns. A pang of nostalgia. Pang is also a noun. Pang or a sharp pain. Now, there can be also verbs and expressions with prepositions. How? Look at this. So, his parents swelling with pride. Swelling is a verb. And with pride is the expression with pride, is the expression with preposition. Now look at this next example, filled with horror. Again a verb with preposition, and we can use filled and horror together, it means. Similarly, burst into tears. Now again this can be used with preposition. Now next slide. Here now is an activity for you. You have to choose the correct feeling to complete each sentence. These are the feelings: anger, horror, tears, nostalgia, pride. You have to fill up these blanks. See which of the blank, so which of the word is most suitable for which blank. Now dear students, I hope you would have done it because it's very easy activity. If not, you can go back to the previous slide and you can try to compare your answers. We are moving on. We also have verbs and adverbs co-occurring together, like pulled steadily, placed gently, whispered softly, smiled proudly. These are some of the examples where verbs and adverbs co-occur together. Similarly, adverbs and adjectives can also co-occur together, like in these sentences. Happily married, I am fully aware, and blissfully unaware. These are some of the co-occurring adverbs and adjectives. Now here you again have an activity where you have to match the examples with the types. The first example is burst into song, roar with laughter. Third is blissfully happy. Fourth is key factor. Fifth is tread carefully. Acutely embarrassing, prices raise, a surge of emotions, a ginger cat. So you have to tally these with these types. Try to do this on your notebooks like this. So I have only done the first one for you. You have to match it like this. So burst into song is actually a type where verbs and expressions with prepositions are commonly used. So you can take a minute for it, then we will move on. Okay, dear students, I hope you would have done. Now we will move on. Now here is an astrological forecast, and you can see yours. So whichever is your month, you can see that. So let's read for the month of April. You are highly intelligent with a razor sharp mind. Now these words here, like in August, you can see you have a tendency to make snap decisions. Now you see snap decisions, these two words can co-occur together. So it is teaching us collocation of the words which can co-occur together. Similarly, keep your word, or bear a grudge, or keep your temper, or making a fool out of you, put others first, fiercely loyal. You can see all of these words can collocate with their node, with these. So streak is the node, selfish is the collocate. Similarly, temper is the node, lose your is the collocate. So this is how the words can frequently co-occur together. This is just a chart to show you some new word usage. I hope that some would have added to your vocabulary at least. I have given the reference of this particular book in the end. This is a complete book on collocations which teaches us new vocabulary items, which words can occur with which ones. Now here again I have taken one screenshot from that same book. It also tells us what is allowed, what can collocate and what cannot collocate. So you see, play a joke or trick. So we say generally, we say the children played a joke on the teacher by hiding under their desks before she came into the room. So we cannot say not we cannot say not make a trick or make a joke. So make a joke or make a trick will sound odd because it generally does not collocate with it. So we will have to say play a trick or played a joke. Similarly, take a joke. It is fortunately the teacher could take a joke and did not punish them, did not mind a joke being played on her. So you see, take a joke means did not mind a joke being played on her. So this, you can look at this whole table and you will see that this is teaching us which words can collocate with which ones, and these are also increasing our vocabulary at the same time. Now I will move on. Now that's the end of our lecture. In our today's lecture, we looked at metonymy, which is a relationship between two words where one word can be used for the other word, but those two words should have some kind of relationship with each other, like part-whole relationship or producer-product relationship. Then we looked at prototype, which is the best example of any semantic field or any semantic category. Then we looked at this third and the last relation, collocation relation, where the words frequently co-occur together. Now these are the references. The topic of metonymy and prototype was taken from this book, Hurford and Hislade, Semantics and Semantics, a course book. And plus your previous two lectures, mainly the content had been taken from this first book. In this particular lecture, the content has also been taken from this English collocations in use, how words work together for fluent and natural English. So you see that this particular book is for fluent and natural English, which means that collocations are helpful for us in language teaching. This last, so the introduction of collocation has been taken from this book, The Study of Language. So thank you, dear students, thank you very much. I hope you would have learned. If you do not understand any concept, you can either email me or you can contact your course instructors. Wish you best of luck. Thank you very much.